on a massive scale, not just in church, but in media and in coffee shops. And so it's been like all the time. It's not just like a little bit for us in church. I think sometimes we think this is only ours. When we talk about identity, this is just us talking about it. But actually it's talked about all the time in different places. People are fascinated in what makes them them, what the identity is, what makes them important, what makes them stand out. That's constant. That's constantly happening. Now, whether it could be in many different ways, I threw down a little bit of a list. I was like, whether it's what gender they are, what group they identify with, place of work that they work at, degree they have, girlfriend or boyfriend that they have. Some people are just like very proud that, I'm dating this person. Oh, yeah, sort of thing. I think Olivia is happy that she's married to me. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Anyway, okay. I just wanted to feel good there. Anyway, so school they went to, that's something we often like talking about. I went to that school. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. Anyway, didn't pass it, but I went there. Something. But person they voted for, that's something that's there. It's very prominent right now in the States. Clothes they wear, vehicle they drive, whether they drive Fords or Chevys, right? Car, Dodge, yeah. I drive a minivan. I've owned actually 3 minivans. 3 minivans, but you'll never hear me say I'm a minivan guy. Never, ever hear me say that. Not because I don't like them. They're really practical. You guys should all get one. I actually had one of those creeper vehicles for a while. Those white ones with the dark windows? I was not a creeper, I promise, okay? I was a surfer. I was a kind of creepy surfer. But anyway, I was an electrician too, so that kind of answers it. Whoa, I'm getting attacked by flies. Anyway, so there's so many different ways that somebody identifies, and I thought, you know what? I didn't put them up there all, but there is so many different ways, and you could think of some for yourself. But often this is what gets all the focus these days. This is like where we were, where we're going to school, what I like, all that sort of thing. This is often what's get the focus, but that's what gets all the importance. And parts of this, for sure, are important, right? Parts of these are important, for sure, to talk about the school, to good education, all that sort of thing. Great. But I don't want these things to distract young adults. I don't want this for myself or you guys from distract us from what is actually the biggest thing. I don't want us to distract us from what's really, really important. I think there's bigger fish to fry. We're so worried and concerned about the things that are around us these days when I feel like we're missing something that's the bigger point. I often feel that. I feel like we're kind of like so concerned. I'm going to share a little bit. Way too many young adults are getting their attention caught up with what I'll call it second-degree issues rather than focusing on first-degree issues. I think so many caught up on the second degree, but rather than focusing on what is the first degree issues. I'm going to give you an example where I started seeing this, and now you've obviously seen this your whole life, but I started seeing this around here. And I remember being in this coffee shop. I was in the coffee shop, and I won't just say which one, but I was in a coffee shop, and I ended up getting dragged into a debate with a group of people that had kind of like met over being through church and different things like that, and they had some friends there. And it was a debate about genders, which I'm not going to go into too much, but it was a battle between whether a man could be a woman or a woman could be a man, and it got really heated. And it was just mad, like at each other and everything like this. And I'm sitting there, it's like tennis. So it's honestly, it was like that. I was just sitting there, and I sat there, and I kind of like, if you've ever been in a situation where you kind of zone out of the group that you're involved in. Like, yeah, I get that all the time. Actually, I do that all the time. I got to like snap back in. Okay, be there. But anyway, but I sat back and in kind of third person, I thought to myself, like kind of watching this go on, I was like, where have we got to that we're at this place where we're arguing over this? Like, where have we got to that this is actually what we're arguing about? This is actually over the news everywhere. This is everywhere. And then as this thing was happening, I kind of paused and stopped and kind of was like, has anyone had a moment like that where like, what are we talking about like this? And then I started like listening, you're zoning out, you start listening to everyone else around you, like in the coffee shop. I started catching the other conversations going on around me. And the next table beside mine was complaining about how the coffee was off by a degree. You know, they're like, oh, this should be like 1 more degree hotter. Something and like, man, this bean is definitely 2 days old for sure. 2 days old. And I'm not even exaggerating. It was literally like a few days. And I remember sitting, okay. And then I heard the next table. Next table was arguing about which kind of brand of computer or phone they had, and they were talking about like, man, this person got this brand. That's so stupid. That's so dumb. Like sort of thing. They got this phone, dumb. You know, something right? Like I'm like, that sounds dumb. Like there's something like this. But anyway, and then the next table was arguing over which show's better to watch. Like, oh, you watched that one? That's stupid. You should be watching this one. Oh, that one's way better. You know, something. The next table beside that was pushing backwards and forwards about which team of sport they identify with. They're like, no, this team, you got to cheer this one on. No, this one's all better. You know, whatever. And now again, caveat: find to talk about. Right? Like find to talk about. I see so many young adults talking about this stuff. This is why it's just. I feel like it goes past what's fine. And I feel like so many of us get caught up on this web of what else is important rather than what's most important. You know, like, what else is there that we can get interested in? You know, I want to get more interested in something else. It's like, wait. What is most important? We can and often have given our minds to other things in this world to shape it and mold it. And our focus becomes off from what it should be. YouTube and Facebook and different places like that have done a fantastic job of getting us concerned about things that we shouldn't be concerned about. Or maybe like this much concerned about. You know what I mean? I'm trying to say is not at all, but way too concerned about things that we don't need to be worried about. And after realizing this and focusing into this on my conversation, it left me actually sad. It left me sad. Like I sat there and like, man, this is sad that every one of these people that we're in these conversations, you think, oh yeah, you're just mocking like random people. I knew them from church. And I'm like, again, this is not bad things they're talking about, right? It's not like, oh, bad sinning, that sort of thing. But I was just like sitting there going, wow, this is what we come here to talk about. You know, crazy, you know, sort of thing. And now maybe that was okay. This is the one time that did that, so I'm going to give them that caveat. But I started asking myself my own question because I started thinking about, yeah, what am I always talking about? What am I always focusing on as well? And it made me ask the question, what should really matter to me? What should really matter to me? What should really matter to us? You know, like as young adults, because often as I'm just going through the week, I'm thinking of different things that I could share with you guys. And so often I think about this. I heard that, I was like, what should actually matter to us? If I'm encouraging another young adult that I'm connecting with next because you're having another meeting coming up or something, what can I encourage them to get excited about or focus on? And in that moment, I actually realized what was going on. And I started to apologize to God. I actually started to apologize. It's part of my job is actually to apologize on behalf of the ministry that I look after, which is young adults. And so I actually I started praying. I said, Lord, I'm sorry that we have missed something so huge that I normally start with myself, that I started attaching my concerns and identity to things that don't always matter. When I miss the things that really do matter, which are, God, that I'm your child. You know, that I'm your child, you're my dad. That I get to be your servant. That you get to be my master. That you love me so much that you died for me, that I get to live with you for all eternity. Like, you know, like I started thinking about that a little bit. I know these other things are good to talk about, but I feel like that consumes me way too much. I don't know about you. And I started realizing that what God thinks about us and wants us to do, that's what really matters. Like if I was thinking of something, I'm going to try and move over here. Sorry, you're going to move in here. That's really creaky there, so I don't like that. Anyway, the floor's moving. But what God thinks about us and wants us to do as Christians, that's what really matters and should really matter. Again, I'm coming back. It's okay. It's okay to talk about these things. Do you hear that? Do I need to keep saying that? Good? You kind of know. It's still all good to talk about other things, right? But I just want to get us to go and think about this because I want to make sure that as young adults we have our focus right because we have so much influence. we have so much influence. I know that many of you are still figuring out that you have influence, and I am too. I am still doing that. But if you think of many, like if you go and do some research on how revolutions are started in countries, how big changes happen in different places like nations, and you'll find out that many of it has started with an old mind, someone who's been like thinking about change, and then someone who is motivating young adults to go and make the difference. That's actually what happens like in many different occasions. And then I just want to clarify, not all of that's good, right? There's many revolutions that happen not good, like absolutely. But you can see that it's been something that was set up, that young adults have passion, and we go and get things, and we go forwards. We actually influence big changes, and we can influence big changes. The thing that I want to make sure is that we have our focus right. This is where I just wanted to read a bit of a quote that we're going to put up. This is actually a quote from Chris Carr. He was like, I was telling him what we were talking about. I just said to him, hey, I'm talking about this. And he said, Wayne, you should totally use this statement. And so I'm going to read it to you. You can put it up there. When we don't allow one source, God, to properly appraise our value, we open the door for anyone and everyone to tell us what they think we're worth. Only one opinion matters. Only one person knows who we truly are. Either our identity comes from Jesus, our transcendent Father, or from a myriad of counterfeit authorities. I'm going to read that. Can I just read that one? I want to read that one more time. When we don't allow one source, God, to properly appraise our value, we open the door for anyone and everyone to tell us what they think we are worth. Only one opinion matters. Only one person knows who we truly are. Either our identity comes from Jesus, our transcendent Father, or from a myriad of counterfeit authorities. We let so many other things tell us what we're worth without even knowing. We really do. You can tell by how we respond to the pressures that are around us. You can tell by, like, when we get stressed, this pressure starts coming on. You can start seeing whether we actually are or not. How many anxieties have come from the fear of what people think? How many anxieties because we feel like what others think is most important? You know? How many of you were freaked out coming to camp? Don't put your hand up. But how many? Okay, you got your hand up. But okay, I was too. Okay. Was anyone nervous coming here? Can we actually then, I was nervous, okay? Can I put your hand up? Put your hand up. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, we're honest. We're nervous, like, right? Like, I'm nervous. I'm still working through this. I let others tell me whether I'm doing a good job or not. Now, it's okay sometimes, right? It's good to hear that sometimes. But man, if that's what I'm stating everything around, and another thing, how many times have we felt like, I'm just going to say poop, because we didn't feel like we measured up to the standards of others around us? How many of you feel terrible? Like, you know, like your dad didn't notice you and you did something really, really good. Or your mom didn't notice you and you tried really, really hard. And or your family, your brothers, or I didn't notice you. Like, you know, like, or someone at church, they didn't notice your hard work and you're kind of frustrated about it. You know, like, that's something. I know that Chris Puhatch, he used to be the guy that I'd try and please all the time. Donovan too. And I found out that Chris doesn't change his emotion, like his face, very much. So he's not, like, so when he's excited, he's like this. And when he's like sad, he's like this. And like, so I'm not mocking, okay, he's an awesome dude. So I'd come to him like, Chris, this is what I did. Like, you know, I tell him the story, and then he'd go, oh, that's so awesome. I'm like, okay, yeah. And I'm like, I'd leave and I'd be like, maybe I was trying to, like, you know, I was trying too hard or something, and then I'd come and do it again. He's like, oh, yeah, no, really good job. And I was like, man, like, you know, like every time you'd go to Donovan, he's like, that's amazing. That's so awesome. You know, like, well, you cut your toenails. Well, amazing. You know, something, right? Like, he honestly, and then so then I often find myself going to him too much, right? That's what I'd find, and you might even have someone you can relate to like that too. It's so easy to fall into this trap of letting something else determine what we're worth. So, because we have let other sources tell us who we are, when that isn't the right source to listen to, we need to begin the process of finding out who we actually are by finding out who we aren't. That's where we need to start, I think. I was thinking, how do I start this? How do we find out who we are? I was like, I think we need to just focus on who we aren't to start with. So, okay, let's start there. And I remember, reason why this kind of really stuck to me is I remember asking Jesus a question. I shared this last year too, but I remember saying, okay, God, like, if you would have 5 minutes to be with me, what would you do? What would you do if you had 5 minutes to be with me, just like this, with us? And we know he's here, but just kind of like here. What would you do? And I remember he said to me, and I wrote this down in my journal, I still have it there. He said, I would embrace you, and I'd start telling you all of the lies that you have believed about yourself, so that you would never need to believe them anymore. And then I would finish my time speaking the truth into your heart, so that you would know what to believe about yourself. Remember that? He told me, I would tell you everything that you're thinking that is wrong. I'd actually try and turn that around, and I actually want you to know what I actually think about you. Like a dad would. I remember one time, oh man, I didn't put this down. Okay, why would I bring this story up? Okay, but I remember one time I phoned my dad. Not FaceTime, we didn't. No, Skype, whatever. Anyway, so I was sitting in Youth for Christ. I worked for Youth for Christ in Landmark, and that's how I met some of you guys. Callum over there, Derek too. Anyway, so I remember sitting there, and I was sitting on this computer. I knew that I needed to go and tell my dad all of the things, well, most like the big things that I could remember that I had done that I knew was wrong growing up. The big things. I needed to confess, and I know some of you had to do that. I've had to help you go through that as well with your families. But to confess something that I had done, my dad would brag about me in front of others, and I would hear him bragging about me and about like how I was doing and things like that. And I know that none of the things that he was saying was actually true. And he would tell people, my son's been pure into his marriage. He'd tell people, like, I know my son like hasn't been stealing, he hasn't been doing those sorts of things. And I remember I phoned him, I Skyped him, and I said that I got some stuff I need to confess to you from growing up. And this is when I'm married to Olivia. And I had to tell him, I phoned him, I said, Dad, like growing up, I used your computer to look at pornography, and I need to let you know that. And I apologize for bringing that into the home. I'm really sorry for bringing that into the home. And then I told him, I said, Dad, I messed around with girls lots growing up. I'm really sorry about like messing around with girls, and I actually slept with girls growing up, and I'm really sorry about that. I wasn't the pure son that you told everybody that I was. And I confessed things. I stole gas from your gas tank. I stole, I snuck things. I stole money out of your wallet. I used your property badly. I talked about you badly all the time. And I remember he stopped. He stopped at the end of this time. He looked at me like through the computer screen, right? And he's crying. I'm crying. And he said to me, Dan, like, my dad was a fearful man for me growing up. Like, I honestly, I had no relationship with him emotionally. I was terrified of him. But he looked at me, he said, Dan, I love you so much more since you've told me this. I love you so much more. I wish you had told me this so long ago. He said, I love you actually so much more since you told me this. And this is what I believe Jesus wants to do too. Like, you get this out, you get this sort of thing, like he's looking at you in a different way. And I actually want to know what he really thinks about us. I think a lot of our struggles and issues and anxieties or depressions or whatever comes up are because we don't actually view God right. So I'd like to find out what does actually God think about us. And so we're going to start off, we're going to do some practical. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to do 2 chunks of practical. This is the first one. We're going to deal with who we aren't. And this is going to you might do some cabin time still tonight. We're going to be doing a fire, so that will take a bit of your time up. But this is going to be kind of that in this as well. So your leaders can decide. So this is the first practical. What we're going to do is I'm just going to go through steps by step. I'll read you the questions now, but we'll go through the questions up here all together. The first question I'm going to be asking is, what have you let determine your value and who you are? What have you let determine, not someone else, just like, what have you let determine your value and who you are? I put up there, I think I put friends you hang out with, movies and media you watch, families your extended family, your workplace. And I just wanted to throw, if you're stuck and you're like, man, I don't know, see, so many of these things, if we actually knew, we probably wouldn't do it. But many of these things we just do because we just haven't known any different growing up, right? So I just thought, if you were stuck, think of something that you're constantly concerned about. Something that you're constantly concerned about. That sometimes can point to what you've actually started putting your value in too much. So it could be what your boss thinks. Now that's important too, right? We've got to work hard. But it could be too much of that. What your parents think of you. What your parents think of you. What your friends think of you. Maybe you're concerned so much about whether you're like wearing the right clothes to fit in or whatever it is. What guys think of you? What girls think of you? Like you're here at this retreat. Are you super worried if you're doing the right things or not for the opposite gender to notice? You know, like, and I just want to put again caveat. What I'm not trying to say is who cares about what anyone thinks, right? Like, who cares? Like, we're just now going to be those kind of people. No, I'm just trying to get our focus right. So what I'd love us to do is let's just spend, so that's the first question. The next one is going to be, what have you believed about yourself as a result, which we'll go into, so don't worry about writing that down. I'm just getting you ahead so you know where we're going. So what have you believed about yourself as a result? The last one is, what does that stop you from doing, and what does that cause you to do? That's the last one we're going to ask. So, okay, you good? We're going to put some music on. I'm going to pray, and you guys can just go for it, write it down. You'll really want to dive into this to be able to get the rest out of this session. So, okay, I'm going to pray. Jesus, thank you very much for this time. Thank you so much that we get to come to you and find out who we aren't. Lord, I would love that. I would love for many of us to be a little bit shaken from this. Not in a way we were like terrified of these sorts of things, but in a way we were like, wow, I actually didn't realize that that's where I put my value. I actually didn't realize that I was settling for second. I was settling for something that wasn't you. Lord, I pray that you'd speak to us tonight. I pray that we would, you would show us what have we let determine our value and who we are. Okay, so we're moving on to the next question. Next question is, what have you believed as yourself about yourself as a result? What have you believed about yourself as a result? I'll go through a few of them. Might be like that I'm a failure. I can never measure up to what my boss wants or my parents want. I've never measured up ever, or whatever. I haven't measured up much to whoever it is. I'll miss out. I'm going to miss out. That's one actually very large thing that many young adults feel that I've met with. That they feel like they're going to miss out. I feel like I'm going to miss out often too. But like, I feel like if I don't get onto the right career soon, I'm going to miss out. You know, if I don't start this or I don't start that, or if I don't fit in here, if I don't start dating soon, I'm going to miss out, right? Like, that's often the pressure. You know, I get married, have many kids, right? Like 4, right? Like, man, like, you know, there's the pressure. There's always pressure there. And so if we let somebody else pressure us, I can't do it. This is one that Chris Buhatch threw my way, that I'm only a follower. I'm never able to lead. That's sometimes what we feel, right? Like, even as if you're a leader here, and you just feel like, someone else should be doing this. Someone else should be doing this. Like, you know, I shouldn't be the one. You know, leaders, you've probably felt that before. And if you're leading in different areas too, middle school, kids' lane, wherever, often you feel like, I can't. Why can't you? Actually, that's a great question. Why aren't you good enough for it? Often because someone else is, like, you know, the influence of that. I'm not valuable. I'm only special if I do something. Sometimes what we come up with. I am not worth people's/God's time. Do you know how many people come up to me and say, you're probably busy? And I know this is not bad, but they come up to me and say, you're probably busy, so I know you probably don't have time for me. And like, do you know how valuable you guys are? Like, you know, honestly, this is my dream to spend a weekend making you guys feel amazing. Like, that's my dream. Like, I make myself as busy as I want to so that you guys feel as valuable as you are. That's my whole life's goal right now, is to make you guys feel like what you actually are. And that's why I put this retreat on. This is why the leaders are here too. They want you to feel what you actually are. You're worth my time. You're worth your leader's time. You're worth God's. And so let's write that down. Let's put down what we feel. So Jesus, would you show us what have we dealt with, or what have we believed about ourselves as a result of what the first question was talking on? Okay, last question here. We're going to move on to question 3. You can do this again outside of this too, right? I like this about sessions like this. I know that what Chris talked on about yesterday, I was like, cool, I'm going to do that later. I'm going to do, when you wake up in the morning, you talked about declaring things that God is. That's actually what we can do outside of this too. So let's keep doing that. So question 3, what does that, so now you know what you've believed, what have you believed about yourself? Now the third question is, what does that stop you from doing? So now you feel like, let's say, you're like, Kate, I feel like my family's been the one that's been like kind of speaking value to me, and that's been the main piece, or I've been giving it too much of that. I know that family does need to speak value, but I've been doing that too much rather than God, and it's been making me, feel like I'll never measure up. I can't measure up. And then the next question would be, this is the question here, is what does that stop you doing, or what does that cause you to do? Does it cause you, so how do you react to that? Do you look for approval? Do you look for approval of others? How does that respond for you? Do you not be vulnerable? Are you too vulnerable then? You're meeting with somebody. I was just explaining with, often when I would meet with Donovan, I would start telling him so much because I wanted him to be proud of me. I just tell him lots. I'd tell him lots. Or I'd confess lots, hopefully that he'd see that I have a good heart, right? See how that's wrong? Maybe you might sin in a certain way because you feel a certain way. You might be not okay with doing nothing. How many of us, when you ended up, let's say if your parents came home and you were sitting there doing nothing, suddenly started feeling a little bit of panic when they came home and you weren't doing anything. Does anyone feel like that way a little bit? I know when my dad walked in the door, I had to be doing something, absolutely doing something. It was otherwise I was in trouble. I remember we had a cattle stop outside of our house where it stopped the cows coming across. And so when I'd hear his car drive over it, you just hear this rattle, and I'd be like, oh, your dad's coming, and shut off the computer, because I was playing the computer probably. And shut off the computer, run, to the dishes, and I'd start cleaning the dishes, cleaning the dishes or doing something, sweeping the floor. How many times my dad walked in and was like, whatever. I bet in his mind, he was like, no way I'm polishing the car. Hey, Dad, yeah, no worries. That sort of thing, been doing this for ages. And he's like, he just sees this one little clean spot. Anyway, but, could cause you to try too hard. You could be trying way too hard to try and impress somebody. I really love telling cell leaders, you don't actually have to try hard to impress me. It's that you showed up. That's impressive. That is so impressive that your cell leaders are here. It's crazy. Causes you to let others take advantage of you. You might have been someone that's just been I just want to feel something. So whatever. I don't even care anymore. And I know that's for guys and for girls. Causes you to take advantage of others. Because you just, you're thinking about this so much, you need to take advantage to feel good about yourself. Whatever it is, let's just think about that. Jesus, would you show us, as we think about this, what does this cause us to do? How have we rooted ourselves that now causes us to do things? Would you show us what we do and we often fall into? Would you show us that, God? Whew. But many of these truths, many of the things that he was saying, we've heard, right? We've heard this before. I'm a child. He's my dad. I'm God's bride. That sort of thing. We've heard this before. But we need to meditate on these truths. So these are the things that we hear about ourselves. These are the things that come first, not second. And this is something that's what I often feel is the opposite sometimes of these. I know it, right? I know that this is true. I know I'm a child. I know things are good. But I actually need it to be right in here. I need it in there. And so we're going to go into, what I want to do is go into this next practical, and this is going to be fun. It's going to be fun. A while ago at Resound, if you're at Resound, as a worship night that we do, we had a time where I read out some promises that God was saying to us, and I read out some passages, and Tammy, if you could throw that up, that one. I'm going to read through some truths. So I have some truths on here. I have quite a few. I'm going to read through these truths and passages that are going to come up on the screen right away. And I want you guys to write down which of these truths was something that you needed to hear tonight. Which of these truths that are going to come up here are those that you needed to hear tonight because you'd been hearing something else and you needed to hear that. And so I'm going to read through this and you guys can just listen and think. If you want to close your eyes through this time and just hear it out, you can. If you want to watch the screen, that's great. It's going to be up there. So I'm going to read this through. So the first truth I have done here is, I am deeply loved by God. I am deeply loved by God. Romans 5:8 says, but God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Second truth, I am a child of God. Romans 8:14 says, for those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God. Love that those who have been led by the Spirit are the children. Next one. Because of Christ's death, I can now approach God and be close to him. Many of us don't feel that, right? Like, you don't feel like we can be close to him, but I can approach God and be close to him. It says in another passage, let us with confidence approach the throne of grace that we might find mercy and grace to help in time of need. That's a powerful passage, but Ephesians 2:13 says, but now you have been united with Christ. Once you were far away from God, but now you have been brought near to him through the blood of Christ. Next truth. I have a tremendous value and worth because I am made in God's image. I have a tremendous value and worth because I am made in God's image. Genesis 1:26-27 says, then God said, let us make human beings in the Trinity, right? Image, to let them be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and the livestock and all the wild animals on the earth and the small animals that scurry on the ground. So God created human beings in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. Next truth. I am God's workmanship, his masterpiece and his handiwork. Ephesians 2:10, for we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ in Jesus so that we can do the good things that he planned for us long ago. Next truth. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Many of us need to hear this one. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139:14, thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. Imagine if we could know it like that. How wonderful. Second truth, next truth. I am not an accident. I am not an accident. Many of us actually think we know that this is true, and yet we actually sometimes act different. I am not an accident. Psalm 139:16. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before the single day had passed. There's no way that we're an accident. Next truth. I am chosen. I am chosen. You did not choose me. This is John 15:16. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. That's powerful. You did not choose me, I chose you. That's a powerful thing. Next truth. I have been bought at an expensive price, Jesus' blood. I am not my own, I belong to Christ. 1 Corinthians 6:19-20. Don't you realize that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God? You do not belong to yourself, for God bought you with a high price, so you must honor God with your body. And the last one I have here is, I am a temple, a dwelling place of God. His Spirit and His life lives in me. I love that. I am a temple, a dwelling place of God. His Spirit and His life lives in me. 1 Corinthians 6:19 says, don't you realize your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God? You do not belong to yourself. I love that. We don't belong to ourselves. We belong to God. So what you want to think a little bit. I'm going to put some music on. I just want you to look at that. I just want you to mark a few. This is what I need to hear. I want to believe this. if you confess, like, I'm not even worth anything before, then there's some big ones on there that you need to believe. I know that you're like, I want to believe all of them. Can I just check on them all? Yes, okay. But let's just pick one tonight that we're going to really focus on, or two. God, would you just show us which one of these we need to really take to heart? That this is just not some silly exercise. This is actually real. This can change everything. Okay, I'm going to move to the next one. Question 2. In the truth that you wrote down in your life, where do you need that truth spoken loudly inside so that you can believe it? Whereabouts in your life do you need that spoken really loudly so you can believe it? Do you need to hear it at home when all you can hear is your own thoughts? When you're sitting at home and all you've got is you got nothing to do and you're sitting there and your now thoughts start taking you over and you realize you're not going to a good place. You're thinking about, oh man, oh no, starting to watch YouTube, it's starting to lead somewhere. Is that when you need to hear it? Maybe you're around your family and you feel like you're not your family's favorite. Sometimes you feel like, I'm the worst. You actually need to know, hang on, it's not true. Maybe when you're with your family that doesn't know Jesus, sometimes it's really tough. You're sitting there going, oh man, like I have a couple of family members that we're praying for, and you just like feel like, I don't even know if I have hope. Like, it's hard. When you're around your co-workers at work, is that another time that you need to be hearing this? Because you're like, man, I just start turning into what they are doing. I start being what they're doing because I don't know how to stand for myself. I don't know how to believe that. When you're at church on the weekend, you're in the church on the weekend and you're thinking that everyone else is holier than you. You're at church and you're like, I shouldn't be here. When you're struggling with anxiety, you're worried that you can't do whatever you feel like you need to do, or whatever it is. At school, maybe you're at school, and you're at university and you're just walking through there, and I know that there's a few of you that are heading there this year. This is going to be big. This is going to be big. I believe you can do it. But this could be something that's coming up. So I'm going to pray. Jesus, would you show us where is a place that we need to hear this loudly so that we can start getting prepared and thinking about it, and that would actually stick for us. So Lord, would you show us that? We're going to spend 3 minutes on this one. Next question is, and you can carry on going on that one if you want. But is there a step that you need to take so these truths don't get taken away so that you can focus on them? Is there a step? I didn't want to come into this one and be like, okay, let's just do a truth and let's just leave this truth behind in this chapel when we go home. But is there actually a step that we can take so these truths don't get taken away so we can focus on them? Is there a friend group that you need to leave or join? Is there a group that's going to need to change? I'm not even saying, here, honestly, this is where I see so many times there's people that are in, even like I said, there's non-Christian groups that they're like, just like, no, I need to save them. I need to save these guys. I can't leave them. And they keep falling into the same thing that they've always fallen into. And they're like, no, it won't be the same this weekend. I won't go back to that club. No, you're going to be the sober driver and you're going to go back there. I know what that was like. I did that. You might be, you might be in a friend group, not only like that, a non-Christian friend group. You might be in an apathetic Christian group. You might be in an apathetic Christian group. You know what the worst thing about the apathetic word? If you cut it in half, it's apathetic. Actually, it's pretty crazy, actually. Are you a pathetic Christian? Right? That's pretty nasty, I know. But if you are in a group that's actually not moving forward, is that going to change or are you just going to stay there? Is that going to be that way because you're just like, no, this is my crew. I'm not going to leave them. Okay, that's cool. I know what I want. I really want to be with a group that's moving forwards. I really want to be with you guys. That's what I want. People that are willing to come for a weekend somewhere so that they can grow. That's who I'm hanging out with. You actually are my only friends. I hope you know that, eh? I tell my leaders that. You guys are my best friends. That's it. There's no one else. I don't go and hang out with some other seniors ministry. I don't honestly. You guys are rad, and this is a cool group of friends, honestly. But I'm being serious. Like, we really need to start deciding where we're going to put ourselves. It's easier for me because I left everything in New Zealand. I know it sounds funny because you're like, that doesn't sound easy. No, but it is a little bit easier because I don't see those old friends that I had that kept pulling me down. And so I look up to you if you're choosing to actually make a stand and actually shift something there so you can stand on this truth more that you're thinking about. But I really think we should think about that. I really do. Is there some media that you watch that needs to be dropped? God convicted me the other day. I was watching too much violent videos. That's something that I was feeling. I was like, it's fine. It's just lots of shooting. It's fine. And he's just like, yeah, okay. Yeah. But should you be watching that much? I realize, yeah. Is there something that I need to get involved in, church, to further this? Actually, I didn't get how to love people until I started loving people and being put there, so I had to. I really didn't. And I started being in a high school cell and serving there. If you want a place to serve and you want to learn how to love people, start serving in the high school ministry or middle school ministry or kids land. Man, that's, you got to push there. And it's a super good place to go serve. But that may be something you might be from a different church, well then serve there. Is there someone that you need to put boundaries up with that is taking away these truths? Someone that keeps coming back into your life that actually is stopping you from being able to stand on these truths? Someone that keeps stealing that from you? I don't know, someone who comes back in that's really negative. Maybe that you actually need to say, hey, if this doesn't shift, I can't do this anymore. I actually can't. I can't keep going back. Is there someone that you need to be vulnerable with? Is there someone that you might need to go say, I should be honest with you, I can't believe this truth because I feel this way about myself. Just what we did before. Is there someone that you need to go be vulnerable with? I'm going to pray. We're just going to write down what we think. This will be shorter, but Jesus, give us a thought, Lord. We'd love to just make sure that we're actually taking steps. But I don't want to read your word and not respond. I don't want to be someone who looks in my face and just forgets what I look like. Lord, I want to be someone that actually goes and lives it out. Lord, I believe that we're talking about something today that is from your word. So, Jesus, would you show us how could we actually carry this truth on? Okay, we're going to go into the practical. You want to put it up there, Tammy? So we're going to be doing something similar as before. We're going to say, again, similar thing. One person go, then the other person go. Person who's sharing takes a moment to confess this to Jesus. God, I want to believe, name the truth. I pray that I would believe this when I am at, or name the place that you would like this spoken loudly, whether it's church, wherever it is. I pray that you would help me take the step to name what it is. Whether it's, change this, start this, whatever that is. Let's put that down and let's actually state that out. And this friend that you're sharing with might actually be somebody that can keep you accountable to that or walk with you in that. And maybe you actually just need to share with somebody from your cabin. But this is huge. So let's do that. Jump into twos. Let's take turn. One pray that, and then the next person.